living in a rented apartment near the road. Every morning begins with the rumble of passing cars waking me up. I get up groggily, squeeze into the subway during the morning rush hour, and deal with complaining or cursing phone calls at work. In my free time, dining out with friends just means everyone's staring at their phones. Even when we talk, it's hard to avoid comparisons. This is Julie's life. No house, no car, the epitome of a working-class individual. Her dreams are long forgotten, tucked away in some corner, and as she approaches 30, the pressure mounts. What was once excusable as youth now feels like a resignation to mediocrity past 30. Julie is anxious. Her husband suggests she could start a blog. Julie had always wanted to be a writer, but her works were never published. Blogging wouldn't have the same barrier, she could just post online. But what to write about? Her city didn't inspire her. She had plenty to say about work, but it would be awkward if colleagues or bosses saw it. Her husband suggests writing about food, given her idolization of the chef Julia Child. But Julie hesitates, not seeing herself as a real chef. Her husband reassures her, Julia wasn't born a chef either. Encouraged by her husband, Julie starts cooking and blogging. She finds solace in the clarity that cooking brings. How mixing egg yolk with chocolate, sugar, and milk would reliably thicken. It's a small but comforting sense of control. She sets herself a challenge on her blog: to prepare 524 recipes in 365 days. By day a civil servant, by night a rebellious foodie, she aims to change her life through cooking, just like her idol Julia. Julie speaks passionately about Julia Child, seeing many similarities between them. Both were civil servants with supportive husbands and a love for cooking. The difference? Julia's exceptional culinary skills and recipes transformed American cuisine. Before Julia, America's diet was limited to frozen foods, canned goods, and marshmallows. Her influence introduced a wealth of gourmet dishes. Yet Julia wasn't always a chef. She was just another American woman struggling with cooking until her mid-30s. In 1949, Julia moved to Paris with her husband, who was stationed there. They lived in a beautiful romantic villa, with serene views that most could only dream of. The only complaint? The bed was too small for Julia's tall stature. Julia loved life in Paris and got along with everyone, believing each person to be uniquely charming. Her husband, her greatest love, always had the first bite of her culinary creations, a gesture of her affection. He supported all her decisions, and when she didn't want to return to government work, she devoted herself to homemaking and her hobbies.
What is it that you really like to do?
Eat.
I like to do. I know.
Her husband encouraged Julia to pursue cooking. She started with books and then enrolled in a professional culinary school. However, the beginner's classes were too basic for her, so she sought greater challenges. In France, the professional kitchen was dominated by men who saw Julia as just a housewife killing time. To prove herself, Julia woke up at 6:30 a.m. every day, ready and in class by 7:30, peeling potatoes, making stock, deboning fish, cooking pigeons, and baking with lots of butter. The classes moved fast, and although she sometimes struggled to keep up, her perseverance paid off. Julia's diligence pays off, and she quickly becomes one of the top students in her cooking class. The men who were initially unfriendly towards her change their attitude when they see her fearless determination. Julia feels she has found her calling, preferring the bustling atmosphere of the market to the fashion boutiques, especially since finding her size in Parisian fashion stores is a challenge. Along with her thriving career, Julia's love life is equally fulfilling. Even during lunch breaks, she and her husband share tender moments. He tells her, "You're the butter to my bread, the breath of my life. I love you, my dear." Her husband's love for Julia is evident, even finding her enchanting when she's bustling around the stove. She shares her happiness through letters to family and friends who cherish these warm correspondences. These letters, along with Julia's cooking book, were later published, allowing Julie in the 21st century to draw inspiration from them. Aspiring for a blissful life like Julia's, Julie embarks on her challenge with enthusiasm. She spends a whole day perfecting a poached egg, a dish she used to avoid. Following Julia's recipe, she creates an egg with a consistency akin to cheese sauce, delighting in its exquisite taste. Filled with confidence, Julie faces a setback 3 weeks into her challenge when her blog seems to echo into the void with not a single comment. Her mother even calls to dissuade her from continuing this foolish endeavor, seeing it as a waste of time. 5 weeks in, after 47 dishes, Julie finally receives a comment only to find it's from her mother. "I don't understand why you're doing this. It seems I'm your only reader." Disheartened, Julie, who has a history of not finishing what she starts, is determined to see this through. Her husband's unwavering support keeps her going. He eagerly samples everything she makes, good or bad, which leads to a period where antacids become a staple in his diet. About 3 months in, their perseverance starts to show results. Julie's blog begins to attract fans, some of whom send her ingredients and offer advice on tackling culinary challenges like cooking a lobster. While some suggest freezing it first, others encourage a more direct approach. Ultimately, Julie decides to boil it directly. In the end, it's her husband who takes on the task of killing the lobster, showcasing his bravery and romantic gesture. For her birthday, he gifts Julie a pearl necklace similar to one Julia Child owned, though hers was likely real pearls. Julie is touched, saying, "I'm 30 now, and I thought it would be terrifying. But thanks to you and Julia, it seems I'll get through just fine." After her birthday, Julie's blog takes off, amassing a large following. However, the newfound attention makes her restless and mercenary, with cooking no longer being a pure joy. She begins to complain about her small, messy kitchen, the exhaustion from juggling work and cooking, and the unruly nature of her dishes. Julie struggles to control her temper, breaking down in tears like a child. She feels utterly incompetent. At this low point, an opportunity arises when a famous editor calls to meet. This could lead to a book deal and an introduction to the nearly 90-year-old Julia Child herself. Ecstatic, Julie prepares for the dinner meeting a day in advance, including a special dish of beef bourguignon. But she oversleeps, missing the alarm, and wakes to find the beef burnt. Left with no choice, she feigns illness to take a day off and start over. Julie heads to the market again and spends the day preparing the beef bourguignon. By evening, she feels ready to host a dinner for a legend. She dreams of emulating Julia Child's success as an author. However, a phone call suddenly brings her back to reality. A sudden downpour prevents the editor from coming, rendering all of Julie's preparations in vain. She's devastated and starts to complain. "I told my blog readers I was having a guest. What do I do now? How do I face my readers? This is a nightmare." Watching Julie constantly complain, her usually patient husband can't take it anymore. He thought the blog was a good experiment for documenting life, but it's taken over their lives and marriage, turning it into a disaster. He's eager for the year to end to return to their normal lives.
I am not a saint.
Oh, yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not. And it makes me feel like an asshole every time you say it.
After a big fight, the husband leaves, leaving Julie to wonder why her life meant to emulate Julius is heading in the opposite direction. She turns to Julia's books for answers and learns about Julia's humble beginnings in a cooking class, teaching for the joy of it, not for profit. Julia's journey wasn't all smooth sailing. She feels a mix of joy and sorrow upon learning her sister's pregnancy, knowing she can't have children. Her husband's silent support during these times speaks volumes, offering comfort without words. Julia, too, had her moments of doubt, especially when her husband was investigated for espionage. Despite being cleared, the ordeal leaves him questioning the purpose of his life, a sentiment Julia shares in her darker moments. Unlike Julia, who had her cookbook, Julie struggles to find her own anchor. Acknowledging her husband's support, she realizes they heal each other, sharing the journey. Years after Julia Child's monumental effort, her cookbook, spanning over 700 pages and covering all aspects of cuisine, is finally complete. However, the publishers are hesitant to publish a culinary encyclopedia, favoring quick and varied content that appeals to housewives. Initially disheartened, Julia remembers her original purpose: to write a cookbook on French cuisine for American housewives without formal culinary training. She realizes that catering to the desires and needs of these housewives is what truly matters. Resolved to start over, Julia simplifies her approach and spends several more years revising her recipes. With a renewed sense of purpose and hope, she sends the finished manuscript to various publishers, dreaming of its potential impact. She envisions the book selling millions of copies and changing the culinary world. Despite years of effort, Julia's manuscript sees no immediate interest, leaving her disheartened. Her husband reassures her, believing in the worth of her work and its eventual recognition. An editor, convinced by a friend to try Julia's recipe, is amazed by the beef bourguignon and decides to publish the book, recognizing its unique value.
Oh my God!
We believe that your book will do for French cooking here in America
with Ron Bowers, The Joy of Cooking did for standard cooking, and we will sell it that way!
Julia's cookbook is published, changing American cuisine and touching lives like Julie's. Reflecting on Julia's life, Julie realizes where she went wrong. Julie sees the parallels and differences between herself and Julia, recognizing the importance of love, passion, and patience in life and marriage. Julie's blog post moves her mother, who encourages her to keep going, marking a significant moment of persistence in Julie's life. Receiving praise from her mother but missing her husband, Julie calls him, expressing her longing. He returns immediately, and they enjoy a simple, sweet life together, reminiscent of a honeymoon. As Julie's blog gains popularity, various publishers approach her with book deals. However, one publisher informs her that Julia Child herself has expressed criticism towards her blog. This news devastates Julie, as she has always idolized Julia and viewed her as the epitome of perfection. Feeling that Julia's disapproval must mean she has done something wrong, Julie is crushed. Her husband provides perspective, reminding her that the Julia in her mind is an idealized version, and the real Julia Child critiquing her doesn't diminish her own achievements or the personal journey she's embarked on. He emphasizes that Julie's own aspirations and achievements are what truly matter, not the opinions of others, even her idols. Reinvigorated by her husband's words, Julie decides to continue her culinary journey, focusing on her passion for cooking rather than external validation. She remains committed to her challenge, cooking the dishes she loves every day. On the final day of her challenge, she hosts a gathering on her rooftop, publicly expressing her love and gratitude to her husband in front of their friends and family.
You are the butter to my bread, the breath to my life.
Oh.
To my husband.
I love you, babe.
Eventually, Julie becomes a successful author, and her story, along with her connection to Julia Child, is adapted into a film. Julia Child passes away at the age of 91, having shared a loving and supportive relationship with her husband for nearly 5 decades. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this.